Okay, we all know that Thomas Binger is a real scumbag. This was sent to me by my man on the street who's been working hard to get me information for my videos. And so this concerns Kyle's lack of disclosure of his address, the one that Binger got all excited about and thought he could get Kyle thrown back in jail. So let's go through this. This is very interesting. There's nothing here that we didn't know before, but this puts a really nice timeline to everything, and it provides sort of proof of what all that's been said. Hello out there. I am trying to get through.
With his powerful brainwaves cradled in the warmth of reasoning, it's time for Johnnie Walker Dread to straighten you out on a thing or two. Emanating all the way from exciting Las Vegas, Oklahoma, it's the Johnnie Walker Dread Show.
All right, what is this? Well, this is a statement by John Pierce to the State of Wisconsin Circuit Court. It's an affidavit. We all know that Kyle failed to disclose his address early on in this whole deal, and in fact, his bond was set at $2 million partly because of that. Binger made a whole big deal out of the fact that Kyle was living in a safe house and he didn't know where Kyle was. And so John Pierce swore an affidavit, signed it, sent it to the circuit court that states basically, on November 20th, I personally went to the Kenosha County Public Safety Building to post cash bond for Kyle Rittenhouse. Through information and belief, I'm aware that prior to November 20th, 2020, Kyle Rittenhouse, as well as his immediate family, had received numerous death threats from members of the general public. Because of these threats, arrangements were made for the Rittenhouse family to reside at a safe house in an unidentified location. Now, when is this? The 3rd of February. Okay, so that's when he had signed this. And by the way, he says he has no professional affiliation in any capacity with Kyle Rittenhouse, so this is after he departed. Due to the threats made against Kyle, I was concerned for his immediate safety while transitioning out of police custody after his bond was posted. Because of these concerns, I coordinated Kyle's release from custody with Captain Bill Beth of the Kenosha County Sheriff's Office several days prior to actually posting his bond. After arriving at the public safety building, I reported to joint services and tendered the ordered bond amount for Kyle. I was instructed to fill out a form and provide Kyle's personal information, including his address and social security number. While I was completing this form, I was approached by a Kenosha Police Department captain who offered his assistance. Due to the number of threats made against Kyle and his family, I was concerned about disclosing the actual location of the Rittenhouse family safe house. Accordingly, I asked the Kenosha police captain what address to put on the form. The Kenosha police captain told me that I absolutely should not provide the address of the physical location of the Rittenhouse safe house on the form, but to instead provide his home address in Antioch, Illinois. Now, keep in mind, they have moved out of that home address. Approximately 50 minutes after I posted bond for Kyle and completed the mentioned form, sheriff's deputies transported Kyle to a secondary location where he was then transferred into the care of private security officers. Within minutes of his leaving the public safety building, news of his release had already been publicly reported by CNN. To the best of my knowledge and recollection, I believe the Kenosha police captain who assisted me in completing the form on November 20th to have been Captain Tim Shaw. Okay, so he has signed this as a sworn affidavit and sent it to the court. Okay, so we can pretty well bank on the fact that whoever this Kenosha police captain was probably did tell him not to put his correct address on there. Now, the police captain was probably thinking that Wendy and the family were still living in Antioch. And so it would not have been, say, out of sorts for him to say, look, don't put the safe house on there, put the home address where his family is living. That would make sense. The police captain probably did not know that they were not living there. Okay, so this is a memo sent to Attorney Binger by who? Corey Kirafisi. He is one of Kyle's attorneys. And he says, I have been hired to assist Attorney Richards in Mr. Rittenhouse's case. We have met in the past. Just want to let you know of my involvement. I will be filing a notice of appearance. By the way, before I forget, Kenosha County Eye is the one that made these public. They really deserve a lot of credit here. Kenosha County Eye is a really good news source. And if you're looking to keep up to date on Kyle Rittenhouse, well, everything Kenosha, they're a good source for it. Mr. Rittenhouse will need to update the court on a change of address. Because of security concerns, we would like to keep that information away from the general public. And so Kyra Fissy is basically telling Attorney Binger, hey, look, we want to give you Kyle's address. Okay, so Binger could have had Kyle's address if he had wanted it. That's what's really important to remember. I wanted to know if you would agree to allowing the filing of the change of address with the court under seal. Obviously, the parties in court will have it, but I think it goes easier if you would stipulate it being filed in that manner. Okay? So Kyra Fissy's doing what he needs to do here to give Binger Kyle's address. When you have a moment, if you would let me know your position, I would appreciate it. Thank you for your time. Regards, Corey. Binger does respond, and he responds on Monday, November 30th, 2020. Okay? Hey, Corey. Welcome aboard. Oh, what a nice guy. Man. I understand your concern. No, you don't. However, Wisconsin has a proud history of open records and government transparency, and I am reluctant to make an exception to the normal practices. In other words, Binger is going to try to get Kyle's address into the public hands out of concern of transparency and tradition. Can you freaking believe that? Can you believe that he would actually use that as an excuse? He says, unless you can provide me with a specific, tangible, and imminent threat or threats that would justify secrecy in this case, I am not willing to agree to redact your client's address from the public record. Oh, okay, so he wants proof of these threats, but he certainly thinks the threats are real because remember, when he went to court, he claimed that Kyle put the new tenants of his old address in danger because of all these threats out there. And now he's claiming here, well, I'm not sure that those threats are really real. Can you imagine anybody thinking that Kyle Rittenhouse's life was not in peril? If there is anybody that in the past 100 years in Wisconsin who's facing charges that would need his address redacted, it would be Kyle. I can't think of a single person that would need protection more than him. And yet, in Binger's mind, Kyle's not under any threat at all. Actually, Binger absolutely knows that Kyle is being threatened. Binger wants his address public for that reason. And he goes on. Of course, you are certainly free to file a motion with the court, and it will eventually be the court's decision in any case. But I will oppose any such motion unless there is a specific, tangible, and imminent basis for it. Thank you. Let's be clear. Thomas Clair Binger could have had Kyle's address if he wanted it. All he would have had to agree was to keep it private. Something that is done all the time, by the way. It is not unusual at all to keep a defendant's address sealed. It's done all the time. He's trying to claim that this would be extraordinarily unusual to happen, and that Wisconsin's tradition of hiding the accused address is more important than keeping the accused safe. So Binger gets all upset because Kyle is living at an undisclosed address. And so he files a motion to increase Kyle's bond. Let's read it because it's kind of humorous. The state of Wisconsin, by Assistant District Attorneys Thomas C. Binger and Jason R. Zapp, hereby move the court, the Honorable Bruce E. Schroeder, to increase the bond of the defendant, Kyle Rittenhouse, in the above captioned matter. The defendant has violated the conditions of his bond by failing to update his address in writing with the court within 48 hours of moving, thereby preventing the court from monitoring his whereabouts. Hundreds of people turned out to protest in downtown Kenosha on the evening of August 25th, 2020. Yeah, okay. What's the relevance? In the midst of this crowded scene, the defendant shot and killed Joseph Rosenbaum and then fled on foot, creating a dangerous active shooter situation. Several people pursued the defendant and attempted to stop him because they had no idea what his intentions were or whether he would kill again. When Anthony Huber valiantly intervened and attempted to disarm the defendant shot and killed him. Another as yet unidentified individual also attempted to stop the defendant and was also shot at and nearly killed. When Gage Grosskreutz approached the defendant, he just approached him. The defendant shot him and nearly blew his arm off. I mean, the language here is really something you would see in a high school editorial. He has been charged with first-degree intentional homicide. I assume he's talking about Kyle there. First-degree reckless homicide, attempted first-degree intentional homicide, and 2 counts of first-degree recklessly endangering safety. If convicted, the defendant will almost certainly serve the remainder of his life in prison. I think that's up to the judge to decide, not you, Binger. After his arrest, the defendant was held in custody until $2 million was posted on his behalf, and he signed a bond on November 20th, 2020. Okay, fine. That bond listed the defendant's address as 286 Anita Terrace, number 10, Antioch, Illinois, and specifically required him to give written notice to the clerk of this court within 48 hours of any change of address or telephone number. It is important to note that the $2 million came from a dubious internet fundraising campaign. Like, what makes it dubious? What do you mean by that? He came up with the money, so it couldn't have been too dubious if the money's there. And the defendant and his family did not post any money toward that bond. Nobody cares, Binger. It doesn't matter. As a result, the defendant is free from custody. Oh, damn! Can't have that. The defendant is free from custody with minimal incentive to comply with his bond conditions. Except he has. Isn't this amazing? He posted no money, so he has no financial stake in the bond. Yeah, okay, we get that. It's irrelevant. The judge doesn't care, nor should he. He's already facing the most serious possible criminal charges and life in prison. Yeah, you've already told us that. So in comparison, potential future criminal penalties are insignificant. Then why is he showing up for his hearings? Indeed, the defendant has already demonstrated his carefree attitude by going to a bar immediately after his arraignment on January 5th, 2021, and drinking 3 beers in the company of known Proud Boys while flashing white supremacist signs and wearing a free-as-fuck shirt. And I'm sure the judge doesn't care. Of what relevance is this? You want his bond increased because he didn't give you a forwarding address? And you're going to bring up beer drinking? None of those were violations of any bond agreement. In a criminal case as serious as this one, it is critically important that the court be able to monitor the defendant's whereabouts at all times. Yeah, you could have had the address, and you chose not to have it because you wanted to make it publicly available. And now all of a sudden you're crying because the court doesn't have it. After all, it is extremely unusual for a defendant facing a charge of first-degree intentional homicide in Kenosha County to post cash bond and be released from custody pending trial. Yes, it is so extremely unusual that the last person to have been accused of first-degree intentional homicide, Crystal Kaiser, is free on cash bond. I mean, Judge Schroeder knows this. He knows that Crystal Kaiser has been accused of first-degree intentional homicide. He knows she's been released on cash bond. Why in the hell are you saying this? You're a liar. You're an absolute freaking liar, and he knows it. Rarely does our community see accused murderers roaming about freely, except Crystal, who's roaming about freely, and the judge knows it. As a result, the defendant's bond requires him to update the court in writing within 48 hours of any change of address or telephone number. That's right, you've already told us this. The address listed on the defendant's November 20th, 2020 bond, 286 Anita Terrace, number 10, Antioch, Illinois, is false and the defendant no longer resides there. On December 22nd, the clerk of circuit court mailed a notice to the defendant at that address, and the notice was returned unclaimed on January 28th. The U.S. Postal Service indicated on the notice that service was attempted, not known, and they were unable to forward. And all this could have been avoided if you would have just agreed to seal the address from the public. Then all this mail that was sent to him would have gotten to him. On February 2nd, Kenosha police detectives Benjamin Antaramian and Martin Howard traveled to 286 Anita Terrace, number 10 in Antioch, Illinois. At that address, they spoke with a man named Aiden Earl, who stated that he had resided there since December 14, 2020, on a rental lease which began on December 15, 2020. Mr. Earl produced a utility bill in his name with that address on it and stated that the defendant no longer resides there. The same Anita Terrace address was listed on the bond that the defendant signed on January 22, 2021, and he failed to correct it. Yeah, we get it. The defendant has also failed to provide the court with a new address. I know. Due to the defendant's violation of his bond condition, the state respectfully requests the following. Number 1, that the court issue a warrant for the defendant's arrest and increase his bond by $200,000. That the court order the defendant to update his address in writing with the clerk of court immediately. Okay, now keep in mind, this is the same guy who told Judge Schroeder that the person, this Aiden Earl, has his life in serious danger because people might think that Kyle is living at that address. This same person told Kyle's attorney that he wanted to keep Kyle's address secret because he did not see any reason why Kyle's life was in danger. And yeah, Judge Schroeder saw right through it. Everybody saw right through it. Even Kimberly Motley saw right through it. Nobody was fooled. You are a freaking liar, Binger, and we all know it. Okay, so let's go through Mark Richards' response to this. Kyle Rittenhouse, by and through his attorney Mark D. Richards, hereby objects to the state's motion to increase bond and submits the following in response. Upon information and belief, Kyle Rittenhouse and his family have received numerous death and other threats based on the events of August 25th in the city of Kenosha. Some of these threats were delivered via social media within hours of the shootings in this case. Now, who in here thinks that that's not the case? That Kyle has not received any threats? Really? Anybody? Nobody. That's right. The threats against Kyle and his family have been conveyed via multiple methods, including social media, postal mail, and email correspondence. As such, the entire Rittenhouse family has had to delete all social media and email accounts and also reside in an undisclosed safe house. Kyle was released from pretrial custody on November 20th, 2020 after cash bond was posted in this matter. Attorney John Pierce, formerly of the Rittenhouse defense team, personally posted Kyle's bond at the Kenosha County Public Safety Building after coordinating the logistics of his release with high-ranking members of the Kenosha County Sheriff's Office. See attached affidavit of John Pierce, which we read earlier. While completing paperwork related to Kyle's release, Attorney Pierce was directly informed by a high-ranking member of the Kenosha Police Department not to provide the address of the Rittenhouse safe house because of numerous threats made against Kyle and his family. See attached affidavit of John Pierce. On November 30th, 2020, attorney Corey Kyrafisi, on behalf of the Rittenhouse defense team, contacted ADA Thomas Binger via email to discuss providing the court with Kyle's new address. There, attorney Kyrafisi asked ADA Binger if he would agree to allow this information to be filed under seal due to concerns about the safety of the Rittenhouse family should their location become available to the public. ADA Binger refused. See attached exhibit, which we read. Okay, again, cannot emphasize this enough. Thomas Binger could have had Kyle's address if he had wanted, but he declined because he wanted to make it public. So those of you that think that Thomas Clair Binger is not a scumbag, I'd love to have a sit-down talk with you sometime. The threats against Kyle have not ceased since his release from pretrial custody. As recently as January 25th, an unidentified member of the public sent an email directly to undersigned counsel threatening the violence of Kyle Rittenhouse should he return to custody. See attached Exhibit 2. Boy, Thomas Clair Binger, that's right down his alley, man. He would have loved to hear about that. This is not the only threat to Kyle the undersigned has received. It is of concern to the defense that any information regarding Kyle's location being publicly available would result in immediate harm to the Rittenhouse family, and nobody disagrees with that. And you might think, well, Binger does. No, Binger agrees with it. That's why he wants Kyle's address disclosed. And if you need proof, go to the hearing where he claimed that the person who moved into Kyle's address faced serious threats. Upon information and belief, the undersigned attorney is aware that following the December 3, 2020 preliminary hearing in this matter, the Antioch, Illinois address listed for Kyle Rittenhouse on CCAP was publicly posted on Twitter. I think the CCAP is the Circuit Court Access Program or something. It's their database. It is noteworthy that the state has only now decided to file a motion to increase bond in this case, despite having corresponded with attorney Kyra Fissy regarding the change in Kyle's residence over 2 months ago. That's right. They could have had the address 2 months prior if they had really wanted it. It is further noteworthy that on November 2nd, ADA Binger asked the court to impose a $2 million cash bond in this case with full knowledge that the Rittenhouse family no longer resided in Antioch, Illinois. Kyle Rittenhouse has made all court appearances and has stayed in constant contact with the undersigned attorney throughout the duration of this case. The defense has no objection to providing the court with Kyle Rittenhouse's current address if such information can be withheld from public record and distribution. However, an increase in bond amount at this time is unwarranted due to the reasons provided above. Under a separate motion to seal, the defense has simultaneously filed a notice updating the court with the defendant's current address. Okay, so at the time of this response, Mark Richards has informed the court of Kyle's address. Okay, so there you have it. There's nothing here that I didn't know about, but it's nice to see it in actual print. And I hope this helped you out a little bit. Like my video, subscribe to my channel.